Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, apologies for not being in Harrogate with you this afternoon. Of course, I like to meet people in person, and indeed nothing is a substitute for that. But I'm also trying to limit my travel as much as possible. We are in an energy crisis. We have to be mindful of the way we spend energy. This said, the first thing I'd like to tell you all, we miss you. We miss you, and when I say we, it's certainly we, the European Greens, in the European Parliament, but I would say that I speak for many European citizens who feel that Brexit was really a sour pill to swallow, that actually it's when the Brits left the European Union that we discovered how much space, how much influence, how much energy they put into our common project. Because indeed, if Europe has not always been popular, the European Union, I mean, in the United Kingdom, the fact is that the influence that the United Kingdom had in the works of the European institutions was quite huge, if only because of the commitment of all the British citizens who were participating as members of the European Parliament, as members of the Council, as civil servants, as civil society activists. I mean, the weight of the Brits in Brussels was huge and is missed. So we cannot wait to see you back, to be honest. We won't disguise this. If only because, well, we are united by geography. The United Kingdom is part of Europe. We are united by history, not always a pleasant history, but a history that has also its good sides. We are dependent from one another economically, and let's face it, there's no challenge of the 21st century that can be faced by any European country on its own. Think of course, peace and war, think of climate change, think of energy, think of economic well-being. We depend on one another, and this is becoming, by the day, more obvious to many decision makers. But of course, we have also to recognize that since Brexit, blaming the European Union or making the European Union the scapegoat of political difficulties at home has become a habit of the successive British governments ever since, Boris Johnson got Brexit done, if I may say so. It has been always so convenient to distract the attention of the British citizens from difficulties at home by rekindling a spirit of conflict with the European Union. And that is where we are today. So it's not that there's a lack of goodwill on the side of the European Union, but it takes two to tango. And we have yet to see whether the current British government under Liz Truss will continue on the same track as Boris Johnson, that is finding always a good reason to quarrel with the European Union and leading potentially to a form of trade war, or if she will do the reasonable thing, that is trying to find an agreement with the European Union. Because indeed, the problem that Boris Johnson had is that he lied to the British public, in particular to the people, the Unionists in Northern Ireland, by telling them the opposite of the truth, that is that there would be no controls to goods entering the single market from Great Britain. And indeed, there would be controls. They were agreed in the Brexit agreement, and that's the Northern Ireland Protocol. And so we need to get that resolved if we want the relationship to resume on a more in a more amicable way between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And you might say, well, this is short-sighted. No, it's a basic condition for the United Kingdom to eventually and potentially become part of the European Union again in the future. My hunch is that this will require a generation unless something really dramatic occurs. You might say that a war is something dramatic, and I would agree with that. But then again, we need to see how the public opinion evolves in the United Kingdom. That pretty much depends on the United Kingdom. I would say that from the side of the European Union, a vast majority of citizens, and I would say political decision makers, would be happy to see the United Kingdom coming back in the Union in one form or another. So I do not think that there would be a difficulty there on the side of the EU. But indeed, well, you need political, well, maybe not consensus, but the vast majority seeing the limits of Brexit for that to happen in the United Kingdom. That's what I'd like to say from my perspective. And indeed, the areas of cooperation are numerous. Energy, certainly one. Now, migration, we need to work together as well, because you see that refugees are becoming really a football between the European Union and the United Kingdom, and they are being kicked around, and well, many of them die or suffer because of that. We also need cooperation on that side, on climate as well. And there, to be honest, I have some misgivings, as well, at least on paper, Boris Johnson's government seemed to be intent in working on at least the energy transition in the UK. What I heard from Liz Truss in her internal campaign in the Tory party seems to indicate that this will not be the case with her. And so again, this is an area where we could cooperate strongly. But then again, if the new British government wants to play the neoliberal climate skeptic, this won't help. So indeed, there are lots of challenges, and this is why it's so important that we keep the relationships and the links existing between those Britons who still call Europe home, and us on the continent. This is absolutely crucial, because politics ultimately is a human business. It is something about feelings, about visions, about narratives. We need to continue the relationships, and this is where maybe one of the most toxic aspects of Boris Johnson's version of Brexit was to sever the ties established by the long-standing and very successful Erasmus project. Because through Erasmus, indeed, bonds were made between citizens of the UK and citizens of other EU member states, and these bonds will not happen any longer. And this is where you realize that indeed it was a nationalist English agenda that was being pursued, and I'm afraid is still pursued by the current British government. But never mind. What the Tory party does is one thing. What we can do as Greens is another, and we will be strong actors to foster the ties and strengthen the ties between the United Kingdom and the European Union. And I would bet that someday we will see, in one form or another, the Brexit really becoming a thing of the past.